Two men, one trophy, and the clock is running out for both of them. That's the whole story, right? That's what everyone's been saying for the past 6 months. Messi versus Ronaldo. One last time, one last World Cup, one final answer to the question that football has been arguing about for 20 years. Except it's not that simple. It never is with these two. And if you think you already know how this story ends, if you think you've heard everything there is to say about Lionel Messi and Cristiano Ronaldo, I want to ask you to set that aside for the next 20 minutes, because the real story of the 2026 World Cup, the human story, the one that lives underneath all the statistics and the trophies and the highlight reels, is something most people haven't fully understood yet. It starts not in 2026. It starts in a small city in Argentina called Rosario, sometime in the mid-1990s, where a boy who was too small for his age was told by doctors that his body wouldn't grow the way it needed to. And it starts on a tiny island off the coast of Portugal called Madeira, where another boy grew up in poverty, watching football on a small television, dreaming of something he couldn't fully name yet. Two boys, two completely different worlds, two completely different relationships with the game. And somehow, decades later, both of them ended up here, in North America, in the summer of 2026, playing in the same World Cup for what everyone believes is the last time. The weight of that is almost too much to process if you sit with it long enough. Lionel Messi is 38 years old. Not 38 in the way that footballers used to be 38, when 35 meant the end was already behind you. 38 in the way that modern sports science and obsessive physical maintenance and a football intelligence so refined it barely requires running anymore allows a man to still be relevant, still be dangerous, still be the player every opponent spends the most time preparing for. He is not the Messi of 2012, the one who scored 91 goals in a calendar year, the one who picked up the ball in his own half and ran at defenders like they were standing still. That version of Messi is gone, but what replaced him might actually be more interesting, more sophisticated, more difficult to stop. Cristiano Ronaldo is 41 years old. 41. Let that sit for a moment. The oldest outfield player to compete at a World Cup at a meaningful level in the modern era of the sport. A man who has spent 2 decades redefining what the human body can sustain through sheer force of will and discipline. He wakes up earlier than his teammates. He sleeps more carefully. He monitors his nutrition with a precision that borders on obsession. His body fat percentage at 41 is reportedly lower than most professional footballers in their mid-20s, and he is here at this World Cup, not as a ceremonial figure, not as a legend taking a farewell lap, but as a genuine competitor who scored 28 goals in 30 league appearances this past season. 28 goals. At 41 years old, you can dismiss the Saudi Pro League if you want. You can say the level isn't comparable to Europe, and there's some truth to that, but those are still professional defenders. Those are still trained athletes trying to stop him, and he scored 28 times in 30 games. The finishing instinct, the positioning, the reading of the game in the final third, none of that has left him. The body has changed, the role has changed, but the thing that made him special, that cold-blooded ability to be in the right place at exactly the right moment, that is still there. So both of them are here. Both of them are real contenders. And the question the world is asking, who wins the trophy, is actually the least interesting question you can ask about this tournament. The more interesting question is what each of them is carrying, what they're running toward, what they're running away from. Because when you understand that, when you understand the psychological weight each of these men brings into every single game, the football starts to make a different kind of sense. Messi goes into this World Cup as the defending champion. 4 years ago in Qatar, in one of the greatest finals ever played, he lifted the one trophy that had defined his relationship with his own legacy for his entire career. He had spent 15 years being told, subtly, sometimes not so subtly, that his greatness was incomplete, that without the World Cup, without leading Argentina to the thing that Maradona led them to in 1986, there was a ceiling on how high his legacy could go. That is an enormous psychological burden to carry, and he carried it through 4 World Cups, through a 2006 tournament where he was too young and too peripheral to carry the team, through 2010 where Argentina were eliminated in the quarterfinals by Germany, through 2014 where he dragged his country to the final almost single-handedly, and then watched them lose to Germany in extra time, sat on the pitch afterward with his head in his hands and something in his eyes that looked less like disappointment and more like a man beginning to believe the story wasn't going to end the way he needed it to. Through 2018, where Argentina were a mess, tactically incoherent, emotionally fractured, and were knocked out in the round of 16 by France, 4 World Cups. 4 shots at the thing he needed most, and then 2022. The 2022 World Cup in Qatar was not a comfortable, dominant tournament for Argentina. They lost their first game against Saudi Arabia in one of the greatest upsets in World Cup history. They nearly went out. They had to scramble, fight, win every game from that point forward just to stay alive. And Messi, the man who had spent his whole career being told he wasn't a leader in the way Maradona was a leader, that he didn't inspire his team the way a true great should, Messi walked to the front of that team and carried them. Not through speeches, not through theatrics, through football. Through moments of such individual brilliance that his teammates simply believed, because how could you watch what he was doing and not believe? The final against France was almost cruel in how it unfolded. Argentina went 2-0 up. The game looked over. And then Mbappé happened. 2 goals in the space of a few minutes, 2-2, extra time, a penalty from Mbappé, 3-2, and then Messi in extra time getting the ball in a crowded penalty area and somehow putting it in the net, 3-3. Penalties. And Argentina held their nerve when Messi lifted that trophy, when he stood there in that bisht, that black robe that the Emir of Qatar placed over his shoulders before he received the cup, with the gold above his head, and his eyes wet and his mouth open in something between a scream and a prayer. It felt like the end of a long story, like a chapter finally closing. So what does he play for now? That is genuinely one of the most fascinating psychological questions in sport, because greatness requires hunger. It requires something to prove. It requires a gap between where you are and where you want to be. And Messi has filled every gap. He has nothing left to prove to anyone. The trophies are complete. The legacy is sealed. By any measure, by any argument, he is the greatest footballer who ever lived. So what gets him up in the morning? What makes him want to go through the physical pain of playing professional football at 38 with a muscular injury in a tournament this demanding, under this much pressure? The people who know him say the answer is simple. He loves it. Genuinely still, after everything, loves playing football more than almost anything. Not the celebrity, not the trophies, not the legacy, the actual game, the feeling of the ball at his feet, the feeling of finding a pass nobody else saw, the feeling of a stadium responding to something he did. And there's something else, something that gets talked about less. He loves Argentina. Not in the way politicians love countries, not in the performative way, in the real way. In the way that a man who left home at 13 and spent 30 years representing a nation from the outside, always carrying that identity even when he was playing for Barcelona, even when he was living in Spain. Argentina is something Messi holds very close. Winning the World Cup for them wasn't just about his legacy, it was about something more intimate than that. And now, at 38, knowing this is almost certainly his last World Cup, there is a simplicity to what he wants. He wants to win again. Not to prove anything, just because winning with these people in this shirt is one of the best feelings in the world. That is a fundamentally different psychological state than the Messi of 2022. That Messi was desperate. This Messi is free. And a free Messi, playing without the weight of proving himself, playing purely from love and experience and the quiet confidence of a man who has already done everything, that might actually be more dangerous than the desperate one. Ronaldo's psychology is the mirror image of this, and understanding that mirror is the key to understanding the 2026 World Cup. Ronaldo has spent his entire career in a state of permanent self-creation. From the moment he arrived at Manchester United as an 18-year-old, naturally gifted but raw, inconsistent, more flash than substance, he made a decision that defined everything that followed. He decided to become the best, not to hope to become the best, not to try to become the best, to decide it, commit to it completely, and then do whatever was required to make it true. The discipline that followed that decision is almost incomprehensible. The hours in the gym, the obsessive nutritional planning, the refusal to drink alcohol ever, the sleep protocols, the recovery routines. Every single element of his life has been organized around the single goal of being at his physical peak for as long as possible, and it has worked. By any rational measure, it has worked. He is 41 years old and competing at a World Cup. That is not natural. That is manufactured through pure, relentless will. But here is the thing about spending your entire life in pursuit of being the best. The comparison never goes away. The need to be recognized as the greatest never fades. It can't. It's too deeply embedded in the identity. For Ronaldo, the question of whether he is better than Messi is not an abstract debate. It is personal. It goes to the core of who he is and what he has spent his life building. And in 2022, something happened that cut deeper than anything else in that rivalry. Messi won the World Cup. Ronaldo didn't even make the semifinal. Portugal were knocked out in the quarterfinal by Morocco in one of the greatest upsets in World Cup history. Ronaldo came on as a substitute in that game. He cried on the pitch afterward, not the controlled, managed tears of a press conference. Real tears. The tears of a man whose window was closing and who could feel it. After that game, the conversation shifted in a way it never quite had before. People who had defended Ronaldo's claim to be the greatest, who had pointed to his Champions League titles and his individual records and his relentless goal scoring as equal to anything Messi had done, those people became a little quieter because Messi had the one thing Ronaldo didn't: the World Cup, the team trophy, the one that football, in its deepest cultural mythology, values above everything else. Ronaldo came out ahead of the 2026 World Cup and said that winning the World Cup isn't a dream for him. He said he was past that kind of thinking. He said he was just focused on the football, on playing well, on helping Portugal. With all due respect, nobody who has competed at the level Ronaldo has competed at for as long as he has competed believes that. Competitors of that magnitude don't compartmentalize desire the way normal people do. The desire doesn't disappear. It transforms. It goes somewhere deeper, somewhere more private, somewhere that doesn't get admitted in press conferences. But it's there. You can see it in the way he trains. You can see it in the way he reacts to setbacks. You can see it in the very fact that he is here at 41, still doing this. He wants this World Cup, desperately. And the desperation of a 41-year-old man who has spent his entire life trying to be the greatest and who knows with absolute certainty that this is his last chance. That is one of the most powerful forces in sport. Whether it helps him or hurts him, that's what we're about to find out. Portugal's squad, looked at honestly, is better than most neutrals give them credit for. Roberto Martinez has spent 2 years building a system that tries to solve the central problem of Portuguese football. How do you build a complete team around a player who is no longer physically capable of dominating games the way he once could? The answer Martinez found is interesting. He built Portugal as a pressing, high-energy team in midfield, with João Neves as the engine. Neves is 20 years old. He plays for PSG. He has the football intelligence of a player a decade older and the engine of someone at the absolute peak of their physical development. He runs. He presses, he wins the ball, he distributes it quickly and intelligently. He does the work that allows everyone around him to be better. And then Bruno Fernandes in the number 10 role, creative, direct, willing to take responsibility. Rafael Leão on the left, one of the most dangerous wide players in Europe when he's confident and running at people. Bernardo Silva, moving into spaces between the lines with that effortless technical quality that makes him almost impossible to dispossess. And Ronaldo at the top, not being asked to press, not being asked to run channels for 90 minutes, being asked to be in the right place at the right time and do what he has always done better than almost anyone who has ever played this game: score goals. In theory, it works. In theory, it is a real system with a real chance. The fragility is structural, though. Portugal's dependence on Ronaldo is not just tactical, it's psychological. This entire squad has been organized, consciously or not, around the idea that Ronaldo matters most. His presence shapes training sessions. His mood affects the atmosphere. His performances determine whether the team has belief. When he scores, Portugal believe they can beat anyone. When he doesn't, when a game goes quiet for him, something in the team's confidence shifts. That is not a sustainable foundation for winning 6 knockout games against the best teams in the world. Great teams are built on collective belief, on the knowledge that if one player has a bad game, the team still functions, on the understanding that the system is bigger than any individual. Argentina have that, Portugal don't, and this is the most honest assessment of Portugal's chances. They can beat anyone on their best day. On a good night, With Ronaldo sharp and the chances coming and the system working, Portugal can beat France, can beat Germany, can beat Brazil, can beat Argentina. Absolutely they can, but sustaining that level across an entire tournament, across 6 games against increasingly elite opposition, without the foundation of genuine collective identity, that's where it gets very hard. Argentina's foundation is something that took years to build and that they should never underestimate. The group of players that Lionel Scaloni assembled and developed from 2018 onward went through their own painful journey before they became champions. They lost the 2019 Copa America semifinal to Brazil on home soil. They lost the 2019 Copa America third-place match. They came into 2021 carrying years of near misses and tournament disappointments with the national team. And then they won the Copa America in Brazil, ending a 28-year wait for a major trophy. And then they became world champions. The players who went through that journey, Rodrigo de Paul, Leandro Paredes, Giovanni Lo Celso, Angel Di Maria, and yes, Messi at the center of all of it. They know something about how to win when it matters most. They have been in the moments where everything could fall apart, and they found a way to hold together. Julian Alvarez might be the single most underappreciated player in international football right now. At 26, he is physically at his absolute peak. He scored 4 goals at the 2022 World Cup. He runs with an intensity that creates space for everyone around him. He presses relentlessly. He makes intelligent runs in behind. He can score with either foot and with his head. He is the kind of complete, selfless striker that great teams are built around, and yet, because he plays alongside Messi, he doesn't get close to the attention he deserves. In a tournament where Messi's minutes might need to be managed, where his physical load needs to be monitored, Alvarez is the player who can carry Argentina when Messi isn't at his maximum. That depth, the ability to still be dangerous without your best player at his best, is the difference between good teams and great ones. Portugal don't have that equivalent. If Ronaldo is quiet, if the chances don't fall his way, if the service from midfield isn't good enough, who scores the goals? Rafael Leão can have a great game and create chaos. Bernardo Silva can pull strings. Bruno Fernandes can arrive late in the box. But nobody in that squad has the natural, instinctive, reliable goal-scoring ability of Ronaldo. And at 41, on his good days, he has it. On his less good days, on the days when the body doesn't quite respond the way the mind tells it to, those goals might not come. There is a statistic from World Cup history that I find more revealing than almost any other when thinking about this tournament. In knockout stage matches at World Cups, just the knockout rounds, the games where one loss ends everything, Messi has scored 7 goals across 16 appearances. Ronaldo has scored 1 goal across 15 appearances. 1. In the specific context that matters most at a World Cup, the elimination rounds, the sudden death games, the moments where the pressure is at its absolute maximum, Messi performs. Ronaldo, historically, has not. This is not a small difference. 7 goals versus 1 goal across nearly equal numbers of appearances is a massive performance gap in the exact environment a World Cup produces. And it tells you something fundamental about these two players that the raw career statistics don't. Messi rises under the specific kind of pressure that World Cup knockout football creates. Something in him responds to the stakes. The bigger the game, the clearer he seems to think. The 2022 final against France, 3 goals and an assist in a single World Cup final game, is the most extreme example, but it runs through his knockout career consistently. Ronaldo, for all his extraordinary individual quality, for all his Champions League knockout brilliance at club level, has not translated that into World Cup knockout performances. 1 goal in 15 appearances. The stage seems to press on him rather than